Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm here with my friends Karen, Jason, Lori, and Samantha's assistant, who's filling in for Samantha today by taking notes for us. But we're in the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. We are starting on chapter 7 as we finished up chapter 6 last week. I'm going to allow everybody to jump out and introduce themselves really quick, and then we'll get started on the reading up to what we think we can kind of get a conversation going over and go from there. So go ahead and jump out and introduce yourselves.
Hey, it's Jason Roberts from Tampa Bay, Florida. Glad to be here.
Lori Emmons from Denver.
Good morning. I'm Karen from Mesa, Arizona. And despite previous reports, I'm not sure that I'm alive and breathing or not.
We see you. So glad that you've been back on this past couple weekends. So good to see you again.
Yeah, we're glad that you're here and that you've been joining us again and that we got you back in the group and everything. So with that, I'm going to get started on chapter 7, Solving the Relationship Problem, Transcending the Upper Limits of Love and Appreciation. As you know by now, the essential move we all need to master in learning to handle more positive energy, success, and love. Instead of focusing on the past, we need to increase our tolerance for things going well in our lives. Now, if we don't learn how to do this, we suffer in every area of our lives. One area that suffers spectacularly is our relationship. As we bump into our upper limit problems, relationships are the one key areas that suffer greatly. In fact, the greatest success you achieve, the bumpier your relationships tend to be. I'll explain why and show you how to avoid this last pervasive barrier. Sorry, my glasses and my eyes are not working together today very well. I worked with a famous couple that would definitely fit the conflict habituated category. To safeguard their privacy, I'll call them Jim and Jane. Things had been going quite well in their relationship in the first 5 years, but a sudden upsurge of success tripped their upper limit switch. Suddenly, they were on the covers of magazines, and ultimately, they even attracted ugly badges of success such as paparazzi and stalkers. By the time they got to me, they had been bickering and arguing for nearly 2 years straight. Recall that one of the biggest drivers of the upper limit problem is a false belief that says, I'm fundamentally flawed and don't deserve success. This false belief dominated their early lives, although neither of them recognized it until they gained an understanding of the upper limit problem. When I explained to them how the ULP worked, or upper limit problem worked, and how old beliefs spring forth to pull us back down into the old familiar negative senses of ourselves, their famous faces actually paled in recognition. Mine did too when it first dawned on me how much I was sabotaging my own efforts to get the love I so craved. Fortunately, I made some of those discoveries before I met Catherine in 1980, so I don't have to use our relationship as the laboratory for all of my early experience. By the time I met her, I had seen the destructive power of my own barriers to giving and receiving love. Particularly, I had seen the power of projection, a subject that, in my opinion, should be in the curriculum of all elementary schools everywhere. A vast amount of energy can be liberated in relationships by dropping the habit of projection. As mentioned, projection occurs when you attribute to others something that's true for your inside yourself. For example, A man may complain to me that his wife is too passive. If he were to own the projection, he would say, I have not learned to handle a relationship in which a woman is being powerful and equal. So I create relationships with women in which I require them to be passive. A woman may complain that a partner dominates her and limits her full expression. If she were to own the projection, she would say, I attract men who dominate and control me. I have not learned how to be my own boss and take up my full space in the world. Projection is a sense of power struggles that eat up energy and intimacy in relationships. Power struggles are a war between two people to see whose vision of reality will win out. Much of the energy in troubled relationships is drained through power struggles about who's right, who's wrong, and who's the biggest victim. Relationships, healthy ones, that is, exist only between equals. When both people are not taking 100% responsibility, it is an entanglement, not a relationship. There is only one way to transform an entanglement into a relationship. Both people must drop projection and see that they are 100% the creators of their reality. With the energy saved from banishing power struggles, much more can be co-created than the partners could have created on their own. If both people in the relationship can understand the upper limit problem, they can begin to adjust the thermostat upward so they can handle increasingly more positive energy. The thermostat can be adjusted upward in several ways. Just noticing how you limit love and positive energy solves much of the problem. Do you bring yourself down with food? Do you drink too much? Do you deflect compliments? Do you find yourself thinking of something else while making love? Do you get sick the day of an opportunity for intimacy in the relationship? Do you hold back on communicating instead of reaching out to people? The upper limit problem is magnified in successful couples because each person is synergizing the other's quest for a life in the zone of genius. At the same time, though, they are synergizing each other's tendencies towards self-sabotage. Couples who wish to transcend these tendencies will benefit from making a mutual commitment to transcending upper limits and living with each other in the zone of genius. If both people are committed to getting there, the journey becomes much easier. In any case, it's a heroic task. The reason is twofold: because most of us have little experience observing healthy relationships, and because having healthy relationships is a new task in evolution. For each, for the first couple million years of human evolution, relationships were about survival, and communication was largely a matter of exchanging grunts. We're newcomers to the idea of having our relationships be about fulfillment, heartfelt communication, and deep commitment to each other. Any of us who embark on a path of conscious growth must remember that we're bringing with us millions of years of evolution. There is no quicker way to bring forth our inner Neanderthal than to get into a loving relationship. When we open up to more love and energy, we begin to flush old programming out of our system. Our energy thermostat is reset higher, and sometimes this sets off alarms in ourselves. Genuine contact with another person gets us high, and this trips the upper limit switch, making us want to come back down to a more familiar level. There are several ways we limit positive energy in relationships. One is by starting arguments out of fear of intimacy at times when we could be exchanging intimacy. Another is by withholding significant communication. We get scared of being close, for example, and instead of telling the microscopic truth about it, my belly felt tight and my skin contracted when I heard you say, we withdraw and swallow the communication. Another way we limit positive energy is by needing to control or dominate the other person. or needing to be controlled or dominated. If we always have to be right, for example, there's no room in the relationship to be happy. If you're a successful person in a close relationship, you will likely find the following suggestions helpful. Make sure you take plenty of time for yourself in a space apart from your partner. It could even be in the next room, so long as the intention is to nurture the independent part of you. Human beings have twin drives of equal power, the urge to merge and the urge to be an autonomous person. For a relationship to thrive, both drives need to be celebrated. A close relationship stirs up powerful transformative energies, and you need lots of rest time to integrate the rapid fire stimulation that a relationship provides. If you can learn to take time off in the relationship consciously, you won't need to do it unconsciously by starting arguments and engaging in other intimacy destroying moves. Go on solo walks, take in a movie by yourself, spend an afternoon doing whatever the spirit moves you to do. These periods of battery charging alone time gives you the ability to master longer and longer periods of closeness when you're in union with your beloved. Put a priority in speaking the microscopic truth, especially about what is going on in your emotions. Get skilled at simple microscopic truths such as I'm sad, I'm scared, and I'm feeling angry. Communicating about feelings, dreams, desires, and other inner experiences creates deep intimacy in relationships. None of us gets any training on how to communicate about these simple things, and our lack of training is very costly. When emotions are in the air, as they often will be in a close relationship, don't try to talk yourself or your partner out of them. Eliminate phrases such as, please don't cry, and there's nothing to be angry about. Feelings are to be felt, so encourage them to go through complete cycles of emotion. If you're sad, let yourself feel that way until you don't feel sad anymore. Same thing with fear, anger, happiness, and other feelings. It is the active, stifling, and concealing feelings that causes problems in relationships. There are three more. Do you guys want me to read the last three, or do you want me to stop and we can kind of digest what we've gone through?
I'd say let's hold up there.
I'm sorry, what?
I'd say let's stop there.
Okay.
I agree. I agree.
Okay. So we stopped with the third idea in the first out of the six of them that he's giving the examples on. So any thoughts or ideas from anybody?
Yeah, I'm rewind here a little bit. So much polarity in everything, and it's interesting concept to think about it being like a laboratory. I've got to work here in all of this minutia that we really haven't been trained in, and probably are responding more to emotions and ego, and learning how to come about it the right way, and what is the right way, because every single person has different emotions and egos that interfere there. And so it's hard to make that 100% commitment. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, I think I did somewhere along the line, but when people get together, they say it's a 50-50 thing, but I have to disagree because each are 100% person. So unless you're willing to give 100%, it's going to cause issues.
I agree. I was just gonna throw out a quick. I actually, when I flip my pages, I flipped from the beginning of the reading and got to another paragraph, but I missed 2 pages in between that. So if you guys want to keep discussing, I can, and we can either come back to this, or maybe next week we visit this again when everybody's here, and that way we kind of redouble back. We go over everything too.
That might be good to revisit it.
Okay.
I would just
Go
say,
ahead. Did you?
in regards to what
Oh,
you were
good.
saying there, Lori, in regards to the 50-50 thing, I think I get that 100. Everyone's got to be 100% in the relationship. That certainly, helps to not be distracted and have your focus outside of the relationship. At least be able to pull yourself back in and be 100% when you are needed. I've just always looked at that kind of that phrase as being, well, my 100% is 50% of the relationship, kind of a thing. So I see it, I kind of see it both ways, but I definitely get what you're saying. And you want to know that the other person is 100%. I'd be like, even if things aren't going terrific, I mean, and understanding that we all have these different understandings of where our what I should say is our personal understanding of what our commitment and our energies towards the relationship should be, and like some people think that, well, you gotta meet me halfway on everything, and other people think, well, you should just get that other side, and I shouldn't have to handhold you through everything. So I mean, understanding where each other is at in the relationship is a huge part of it. So the communication is really a big deal in the relationship. So I like what he was talking about in regards to the micro, like, understanding. I think it was like the and I from what I gathered, it was really kind of the willingness to take a deeper look into our upper limit issues and dig down into the micro aspect of what a particular what might be servicing in a particular case. So but I could be wrong, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I think you're right on target, Jason. This idea of a relationship is like being in a laboratory. Come into my laboratory.
Yeah.
No, I and I think, going off of both of what both of you are saying, I think a lot of times we get a skewed sense of what a relationship is going to be like when we first enter relationships, how both sides try to put that best version of themselves forth, and you're a little more open, you're a little more vulnerable. You may not show all the deep, dark things about you, but you trying to, and we get that idyllic picture of, oh, this person is this, and this, just meshes so well with what I want and what I'm looking for. And then either after you've been together a while or after the marriage and you start getting into the day-to-day everything and all that, that's when the real you comes out, and you're like, this is not what I married, or this is not who I committed to a, whether you get married or not, a lifelong, partnership with and stuff. And I think then we tend to draw back and we're afraid to continue on because we see the real person and we're like, but we're still committed because you still love and care about them, but you revert back to, kind of, like, oh, I'm afraid or this or that. And we go back into that safety zone and we don't want to be vulnerable because after that first argument or after that first, hurt or whatever, it's like, you don't want to go there. So you revert back to kind of your safety zone, which is our, zone of excellence. And we kind of, and I'm kind of different. I'm kind of easy about opening up about how I'm feeling, where I'm at and but I do that with certain people, not everybody, but I think most guys have a hard time opening up like that to their wives or their partners, however it may be, because for fear of looking weak, so to speak, or that, and for fear of rejection and things like that. And I think that's the other biggest thing, is going back to what he was talking about, projection. I think projection is, in a lot of ways, our own worst energy, because I tend to do this a lot, even just in my personal things, with things that I may be afraid of or not sure of what's going on, because I don't know the outcome. So then I start projecting, and this isn't even in relationships. This is just in things in general. I'll start projecting, oh, well, this is going to happen, or that could happen, or this could happen, or that. And it's like nothing has really happened yet. And I'm already preparing myself for the bad. So I'm already letting that negative in rather than sticking with that positive. So I think projection is one of our biggest key trip ups that we all have. Any thoughts on that?
Most people start out in a relationship and everyone has a set of expectations. And if that's not met, that is part of the cause sometimes. To go into a relationship without expectations. You might have things that you prefer or hope that it will be. It just needs to be discussed rather than just jumping in without the manual that was supposed to come with all of our births, right?
Yeah, well, in regards to this upper limit issues, these are all really our own upper limit issues that keep us from moving forward and getting further along in relationships, or breaking through those entanglement type of situations. I would think that, we have to address them or be open to addressing them ourselves, and right therein lies could lie a situation itself, if both sides of the relationship aren't in the willing to discover the aspects of upper limit issues and push through them and make any changes and accept accept responsibility for what their part of the equation is, then it can almost seem like making the effort to try to help yourself when the other side isn't also in the in the pursuit of that, that can that can even cause even more of a disconnect.
Most
Speaking of
definitely.
just, go ahead, Lori. Go ahead, Lori.
No, go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Speaking of disconnect, I started to kind of unravel here when I heard in the reading, I don't know if I can even recollect it now, what it was exactly. Oh, individuals being the boss of themselves. As I look at my two memories, as I look at my two marriages, I realized that I didn't feel the boss of myself very much in my first marriage. That I see it as really unbalanced in terms of it was kind of his go and show, and he expected me to um, to go. I mean, I'm even confused now how to say how that relationship really probably took a nosedive from the beginning. It was a 19-year marriage, but it wasn't really a marriage. It was more, if he was around, he was the lead. And I probably even struggled to be in the background. I didn't feel that I should have to be in the background, but the sense of that I probably was in the background really strained my ability to be the boss of myself. In this marriage that I'm in now for 23 years, by the way, that first year marriage would have celebrated its 50th wedding anniversary this April had we been together. So we've obviously been apart more than we were together. Whereas in this marriage that I'm in now for 23 years, it's not been a marriage. I don't even really see it as a marriage. When I fill out a form and it asks my marital status, I usually think first single, and then I think, oh, to be honest, I'm separated. And if it doesn't give me the option to put separated, then I have to put married, and I have to remind myself that I'm married because I haven't seen my husband for probably 20 years. And I have been the boss of me. And yet I think oftentimes my decisions reflect what I maybe could have gotten away with, so to speak, in my actual marriages when there were two of us that were participating. This is a very strange and really surreal chapter for me thus far, in that my thoughts have been going off in these directions, which compare how I was in each marriage and how I have been out of each marriage. I don't know if any of that makes sense sense at all. I'm not convinced I'm getting much logic and reasoning here.
Yeah, you're sounding fine, Karen. I understand what you're saying. That the emotions and egos get in the way, and what each of you expected out of the marriage, and things happen in life that really push your upper limits and your zone of genius or excellence. And I never thought about that way until this book. That what I thought was my zone of excellence or my zone of genius was actually my zone of excellence. And it's not going to necessarily make or break a marriage just to be the good housewife, the good housekeeper, when he's expecting the good sex partner or whatever. And not really expecting much more than that a lot of times. And now I'm not making sense, Karen. Go ahead.
No, I'll jump in now, and because I'm gonna take this to another part that he was talking about. I think a lot of this stems from one, like he says, we've got all these years of, building up to where we're at now of, in society, of what we see and look and expect and what we hear and stories and stuff. But also, you got to go back. At first, you deal with relationships of you and your parents. And when you're younger, you're dependent on your parents. So but as a baby, that me and me only thing really is out there front and center, because every time you cry, it's all about you. And the parents tend to come and, want to take care of, make sure and everything. But then as you grow and stuff, you learn kind of, they're the boss, they're the parent, I'm the child, and stuff like that. So then as you move out and get into the world more and more, as you try to exert some of your being 100% you come across those other personalities, and sometimes they are bigger, more intimidating, or somehow, it doesn't, there's friction and it doesn't work out. Or like, for some of us who have gone through abusive situations as when we were younger, and as we get older, that tends to overshadow a lot of how we operate and how we deal with things and how we look at people too. And it's learning to not forget them, not erase them, and not discount them, but learning to put them in a place where it does not overtake and overshadow you being you, and you being able to be in the relationship, participating 100%, and hopefully receiving that 100% back. And it's all a learning process on all sides, but it also tends to be a war zone on all sides too, for lack of a better way of saying it, because no one wants to lose. And I think we're all so afraid of losing ourselves, but in the process, a lot of times we lose ourselves, if you understand what I'm kind of saying there, and I think that it, to go back into something that, when I was reading those 3 out of the 6 little principles that he said, Where that first one, he was talking about, make sure you take plenty of time for yourself and it's space apart from your partner or, but that, I think that can be attributed to family, friends, coworkers and stuff. And, it could be even in the next room, so long as the intention is to nurture the independent part of you. So that way you don't lose that part of you that makes you and is important and makes you who you are. And then that way, when you kind of get that battery, and I like, where he talks about kind of recharging the battery. And I think we all need that. So that way we can go out and then we can get that energy out and going back to what we learned in the previous book, giving out that love and giving out that, all that to be more. I think, then from there, you can hopefully learn to better balance and then work towards getting or help bring you and your partner or your, family or stuff into their zone of geniuses also. And I think, that I've said for a lot of years, and I don't know why I ever said this, but it hit me when I was younger, and I don't know why I don't pay attention to this. But I've always told people you always need time to yourself, so that way you can recharge, get yourself back to where you need to be. You need time with your partner or family or close friends or whatever, so that way you can get their energy and build off of them. But then you also need time with your partner alone or, significant other. In the case of me, I don't have a significant other, so that makes that area hard. And that's an area where I feel very lacking, and that's something I yearn for very deeply. But yet, I think a lot of other issues from growing up and things like that, I don't know how to manifest some of that to make that materialize. And that's part of what I'm trying to learn and understand.
I think I'm sorry, Lori, I can't keep doing this. I think part of what I don't understand is how to be the same person, the same boss of me in both a relationship and in an outer environment. I feel like when I'm in an outer environment, which I was forced to take on in my first marriage by a husband who insisted that either I work outside the home like he was, or he would not. He would not work outside the home if I didn't. And so, because I had to the whole time, as opposed to ever being simply a mother to my children, tending to them and staying at home and doing the things that I would like to have done had I been able to stay home and not have to really promote businesses, which is what I did on the outside. I felt erased, I think, when he was home. When we were home together, I felt like I almost didn't have a way to, excuse me, a way to be a boss of me, because I felt so commandeered by my husband. And I just find it difficult, even now, to think about myself as a me to be a boss of. I'm constantly aware that there are other people around. For example, now I'm sitting eating for my breakfast to come, and knowing that those people will show up, and I will be attentive to two audiences. I'll be aware that I'm part of this group, and I will be aware that I'm part of that group. And it causes me to be splintered. I don't feel like I'm just a person in my own right, a person in my own right to be a boss of. I feel like I'm constantly aware of others and how they might perceive me or how they might want me to be. I don't know if this is on topic or not.
Yes, I think it was so much simpler when all we had to do was learn how to survive and stay away from the saber-toothed tiger. So then when we started getting our autonomy as part of evolution, everything in the universe is expanding, and the more we learn, the more stuff there is to get jumbled up. And I think that's just the challenge, to expand with the universe and learn and grow. How you yeah, grunt to communicate, that's right. Being that we have minds and different abilities and capabilities, that doesn't necessarily jive with the partner. And we all kind of got one arm reaching back to hold on to the past, and the other arm reaching to the future and expansion. So you become splintered, is a good word, Karen, but more like ripped in half, unable to proceed.
I think you make a good point about, how, and I think it's a pretty good word, or splintered or ripped in half is, and I think that's what we do, is we tend to hold on to the past because of that gives us a little bit of control, that gives us a little bit of safety and sense of, okay, and I can see why that zone of excellence is where we like to go back, where we gravitate back to, because it is so familiar, it is so, for lack of a better way, safer. But in reality, is it really safer? Is it really elevating us to where we can be the best boss of ourselves that we can and should be, and to help bring out the best boss of themselves for somebody else, so that way, especially in a relationship or a partnership, to where both sides are realizing or achieving what they both need, but the goal is to expand and elevate everybody around you with you. I think that is maybe what part of the zone of genius is about also.
Well, yeah, it depends on both. If you have two people in a relationship, it depends on whether or not both people's expectations match up, and that can be off from the get-go. If one person is in the relationship and is really liking the ability to remain in their zone of genius, just zone of excellence, because the other person allows them to, and but it's never communicated that the other person really wants to grow with that person through the relationship, then one person is there's a lack of communication, of course, and then there's also that misunderstanding that one person's looking to expects that there's going to be growth in each other's lives, outside of the relationship that they can then bring back to the relationship, and they can both grow together and learn the world together and expand with the universe together, and still be able to come back to a place where they with each other, where they understand the dynamic or appreciate the dynamic, and allow one person to be, to express themselves in one way at one point in time, but then come back and withdraw and take their own and maybe fall back into their zone of excellence at another point in time. So there's a sort of like that give and take, and that but if expectations aren't the same, and that's not communicated, if there's not that open line of communication, I think that can, in so many aspects, can stifle a relationship.
Well, and I think that brings us back to the second point where he says, put a priority on speaking the microscopic truth, especially about what is going on in your emotions. Get skilled at simple microscopic truth such as I'm sad, I'm scared, I feel angry. Communicating about feelings, dreams, desires, and other inner experiences create deep intimacy in relationships. None of us get any training on how to communicate about these simple things, and a lack of training is very costly. And I think that's true. And then it goes into point 3, when emotions are in the air, as they often will be in close relationships, don't try to talk yourself or your partner out of them. And I think that's one thing we all do in relationships, is we try to talk the other person out of it, because we're not in that relationship, so we're not, or in that feeling, and we are looking at them like, you shouldn't be feeling like this, what are you so, but yet we're not them, and we don't experience things exactly the same way. So if we can learn to be open and honest about where we're at and where we're feeling, and being allowed to feel that, because a lot of times in relationships we don't like that, because then it puts us on edge and on nerve, because it's like, oh no, and then we go, okay, so what did I do wrong? What? And we're second guessing it, and it may not be anything that we did, but we second guessing it. And then a lot of times, but in that process, he says, don't try to talk yourself or your partner out of them. Eliminate phrases such as, please don't cry, and there's nothing to be angry about. Feelings are to be felt, so encourage each other to go through complete cycles of emotion. If you're sad, let yourself feel that way until you don't feel sad anymore. Same thing with fear, anger. So I think in that sense, if you also can learn to understand that maybe not everything is not caused by you, you're just the one that's in the perimeter that's might be getting some, getting hit with some of it, but understand, because I know I've done it in times. It's like, well, there's nothing to be mad about. What are you mad about? But yet I don't perceive it or understand it, or I'm not where they're at in that moment. And sometimes by giving that room to allow others to walk through that, I think that can also probably open the door to what better intimacy, especially in, relationships with, spouses or partners. But it can also help in relationships with good friends and stuff like that, if you, learn to understand that. And it can maybe open the door to being able to work on moving to that zone of excellence too.
I hate when I have a thought and it just goes away. It's all about unconditional love. And as human beings, we are simply not capable of necessarily unconditional love. And how we learn that, and think is part of the growth process of, expanding. If the universe is expanding, we're all expanding. And if one is oppressed, that's more like a contraction, and it's against the polarity thing, the factor that, the push and the pull and the right and wrong and the up and down. It's just a growth process that society and humanity is going through.
I think
But you
if,
brought,
if-
go ahead, Jason, go.
I think if wherever we look, we're looking for struggles, or we're looking for the a problem. We'll find a problem. It kind of just depends on what we're really looking for, and yet if we're looking for, if we take the joy in how we if we're looking for joy in a situation, and we're looking for and appreciating the joy of how our what we play as our personal part in each dynamic of each relationship, whether it's a group or it's just one other person, and how that can evolve and change, not just over a long period of time, but maybe even just within one conversation. And we look to appreciate that. And I think, it was revealed to me recently about how people don't really even understand what unconditional love means, and that some people are like, well, and I used to think that unconditional love meant we love something no matter how bad it makes us feel, or how this and that, but but really it can mean that we are looking to appreciate. It can have different meanings. So a lot of times I think there's that communication disconnect, and there's that people are coming from a different space, a different understanding about what's going on, about even what's maybe making them upset at the time. And we're looking at it one way, and then maybe even thinking, oh, we're a part of that, we're causing it, because it seems like that's what we're getting from that relationship all the time. But it may not mean that at all. So I think we need to be more open to the possibilities of there not being a struggle or not being a problem. And like you said, we look towards the joy of appreciating the situation. My only issue with that is that sometimes in trying to help work through problems or issues, it can take a lot of our own energies and sort of set us back. Seems like set us back in an energy framework, kind of take us out of our good energy. And so there can be, I don't know if that's an upper limit problem where we get worried about how this is going to affect us, or personally, but if we're able to communicate the whole situation and where we're each coming from, I think it can solve a lot of issues. But even that can be just such a difficult thing to do, because everyone, it doesn't seem like there's ever enough time to fully discuss things. Anyway, it's not as cut and dry. It's not as simple. So I appreciate what everyone's saying though.
Well, I think you both you and Lori made some good points, and I think there is that underlying thing that I'm going to say most of humanity wants is unconditional love. but I go back to you now, Jason. I think what you saying about there are different aspects to it. I think, yeah, there are different perceptions from everybody's point of view, because what to me might look as unconditional love may not necessarily be the same viewpoint of what you have of what unconditional love is. And I think it's because it's framed through our own lenses of what we've lived, what we've dealt with, what we aspire on our own, and what we project on our own. And so in that, I think that's where some of the collisions, I think, come about, and where, the not meeting up, and where, but going back to what you were saying, I think it is all part of that up and down, that yin yang, that pull, push, that's out there, and the contracting and expanding of, everything. I think, it's just part of this journey that we're all on, and that we're all a part of, and that we're all trying to ultimately figure out to achieve the peace, love, happiness. Well, I'm not going to say happiness, joy. I think there's a difference there. Serenity, and to be in that zone of genius. I think we all want to be in the zone of genius theoretically. It may not play out, or it may not be as easily attained, but I think in all of our heads, or in all of our, I think everybody tends to look and want to be in their zone of genius, because then hopefully we're in that zone that allows us to experience everything and all that we are desiring in life. And then maybe from there, maybe there's another level after that, after the zone of genius or something. I don't know. Don't know if anybody's, found that, or if they're,
We
but
don't
I'm
need
sure
any more to complicate it, right?
right
I'm
now, yeah.
doing a fear detox program that so many things we fear, and it can cause the fight, flight, or frozen aspect of our beings. And learning to discover and develop around that, how you stop being fearful and sabotaging your own hope for a relationship.
Wow, we're at the top of the hour pretty much. Any last thoughts or anything like that from anybody?
Thank you for reading, and this has been, as usual, another expansive experience.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting and reading, Dan. Appreciate it. I don't know. So I think it deserves more discussion. So how about we meet back here next week?
Wow, what an idea, Jason. I like it.
Yeah, thanks. That just came to me. Yeah, and we might even review a chapter or two from previous weeks on the YouTube channel or something like that. Mindset Mastery Collective.
Well, with that, I love how you communicated those thoughts, Jason. speaking at microscopic truth. But yeah, hopefully we'll kind of go over this last chapter, because I did miss that couple pages. When I flipped my pages, I didn't realize I had a couple of them stuck together.
And the other
And
three
the
components.
3
that you haven't
points,
covered.
yeah, and to finish out this chapter. But we're in the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Hopefully Samantha and Catherine will be back next week to save me from reading, because Catherine does such a better job on the reading. I love to read and I can read, but when I read with other people, I feel disjointed. And Catherine does so much better.
The reading aloud part that I can't do.
So with that, Karen, any last thoughts from you, or are you okay?
I am so grateful to be a part of this group. I went to the YouTube, where you can find any of the past stuff. I scrolled down to the bottom, and there were some things from 9 years ago. And I think of myself, I don't know how I possibly haven't kept up with it accurately, but I feel for me it's been about 6 years that I've been a part of this. And I've had so many absences during times that I've had deep depressions, and I just couldn't navigate. I'm just so grateful to be on now and to be participating and to be hearing all the thoughts that come up from each of us as we go through each chapter and its revelations to us from the book. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I love you lots. Bye-bye.
Well, with that, for the Saturday Morning Mastermind, you can always find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective. You can also find us on YouTube at the same Mindset Mastery Collective to see all the videos that, as Karen just mentioned, going back to 9 years ago. We have been around for a while. Love this group. We've gone through lots of things, had lots of people come through and been apart and moved on with their lives. Hopefully a lot of them can come back maybe and jump back on and join us again. You can also find us on mindsetmasterycollective.com. There again, that has ways to join us and be here on the Zoom and on the panel. So with that, see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.